I'm Jonathan Milam, an evangelist out of Houston, Texas, and I wanted to spend a moment talking to you about breaking strongholds, and particularly about taking down a spirit of apathy. A spirit of apathy. In a previous video, I addressed breaking strongholds and taking down a spirit of pride, and I felt that was applicable to the words that Jesus spoke to the Laodicean church, and that would be in Revelation chapter 3, and he began with Laodicea in verse 14. At this moment, when we talk about apathy, I'm going to draw my thoughts from Revelation chapter 2, where the Lord was addressing the church at Ephesus. In verse 4, after he had stated his understanding of what they had done, he did point out some strengths that this church possessed. But in verse 4 he said, "Nevertheless, I have somewhat against thee, because thou hast left thy first love." And some speakers that I've heard have felt there was great emphasis on left their first love. Generally, we talk about the church that lost its first love, which when you lose something, it's an omission. When you leave something, there's more intent involved. It could be that the church at Ephesus decided love is not a priority so much as service, or so much as another facet of Christianity. However, the Lord did indeed feel that love was important, and because they left their first love in verse 5 of Revelation 2, he went on and said, "But remember therefore from whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and remove thy candlestick." Of course, the book of Revelation begins with a picture of Jesus in the midst of 7 golden candlesticks, or a golden candelabra with 7 candles on it. And each of these represented one church. He was telling Ephesus, if you don't recapture your first love, I will remove your candle from the candelabra. In other words, I will remove you from my churches. So love to the Lord was a very, very strong point. As an evangelist, I've been in a lot of churches. I've observed them, and I've left some churches, and of course my wife Pamela and I would sometimes discuss them. And sometimes I would say, that church was cold. And she would sometimes say, but efficient. You see, she thinks towards efficiency. And I think, frankly, towards compassion or passion. And speaking of compassion, I feel that every miracle that Jesus performed, at the root of that miracle was compassion. He loved people so much, he did not want to leave them like he found them. He still has that same love for us. He wants to elevate us from our initial meeting point with him to a high point. It's mankind's tendency that we fall from the high point the Lord lifts us to. Paul said, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So we've all fallen off to some degree. So it was with Ephesus in Revelation chapter 2. They had fallen from a place of love to a place of other works. Love, however, must be the key to our churches. Now, when we talk about breaking strongholds, in the previous message that I spoke of, breaking the spirit of pride, there was a certain action that would go to that. And you can see that video if you'd like to see what that was. But what I've done, and what I felt really worked wonderfully, was in a service. In fact, I preached some time back for a friend of mine in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I just asked that the young people of a certain age, it might have been high school or junior high and high school, and it was just a service that I was there for. A lot of people were present, several hundred, and so I said, can I have all of you from, I don't remember what it was, your teens, 13 through 18, whatever it might have been, could I have you come up and stand here at the front of the church? And so they come up and stood right in front of the platform, just a few feet from where I was. And I do have a burden for young people. It's quite a distracting world that we live in, to say the least. But I had these young people come up, and then I looked at the congregation, and I said, I want those of you that feel a burden, a concern for these young people to come up with one stipulation. I do not want you praying for any of these young people that are related to you. It's very easy for me to feel compassion for my daughters and my son, but for someone else's child, can I exercise that same love? And I remember in that service, the people came up and began to pray, and I went down the line and prayed for every one of them. I can do what I want. I'm in charge of that service. Didn't limit myself to one. And I prayed, most importantly perhaps, that they would learn to love righteousness and hate iniquity. If we can just love the things of God and hate the things of the world, the sinful things, we'll find our Christianity to be so much stronger and frankly more pleasant. But at any rate, in the future, I've thought if I returned to that church, I might have the seniors come up, everyone over 80 or 75 or whatever, and then ask the young people to come up and pray for them. It does involve moving out of our comfort zone somewhat, but doesn't any strong reach towards God involve some cost? I believe what can happen, and what did happen in that church, was that the elders began to feel a burden and a concern and a love for these younger people. And I believe that when we have elder people that come up, that we will then also see that the youth can develop a love and a concern for them. It's important. We need to break the spirit of apathy, the spirit of complacency that has gained root in many of our churches. God bless you. Thanks for joining me with this video. Check my others out. Spend a moment with me and say hello if you can. God bless. Bye-bye.